As far as I'm concerned, in the world of comics, there's only one man without fear. That's right, here comes Daredevil. And today on the Comic Book Report, we're doing an entire video dedicated to this incredible character, and more importantly, where to start reading. So come and check it out on today's Character Showcase. Alright, greetings from Hell's Kitchen everyone. My name is Dominic and you are watching the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. As I mentioned, today we'll be taking a look at my picks for the best places to start reading Daredevil. Before we dive in, however, I'd like to issue a brief spoiler warning. While pretty much all of these comics have been out for some time, I just want to give a heads up that I will be flipping through a number of collections and commenting on various plot points throughout. Alright, let's get started. Alright, the first place I have to recommend going if you want to start reading Daredevil is Daredevil issue 1. I had to do it, guys. Always start with the origin story. And I know there's probably some of you out there that cringe whenever you see Silver Age comics or older, but I'm definitely of the mentality that you gotta know the history. It enriches the rest of the experience, and I definitely think that's the case here with Daredevil issue 1. And since we're talking about this issue, I thought I'd go ahead and whip out my Daredevil Volume 1 Omnibus with the Alex Ross variant cover on the front. I got a pretty good deal on this once upon a time online, and I was excited to go ahead and grab it. As many of you probably know, this oversized hardcover omnibus format is a wonderful way to collect some of these issues and runs. They have a high gloss, nice paper, and it's just a great format to collect these. This omnibus collects about the first 40 issues or so and some change. Great little collection here. I just want to show you what it looks like here, and then I'm actually going to show you another more affordable format when we look more at this first issue. And that format, of course, is the Marvel Epic line. This is the Marvel Epic Collection, The Man Without Fear, Volume 1 of this Daredevil series. This is a standard size paperback format, collecting roughly the first 20 issues on a nice glossy paper. I'll do a quick size comparison, and then I'll take you through some of those early issues there. Why I like starting with the origin story is you can kind of just get the history right where it came from. You get to see how he got the nuclear waste material in his eyes, saving the old man crossing the street. He goes blind, but he gets heightened senses and a radar sense. You get his father, who's the boxer, who gets caught up in organized crime as kind of an enforcer. You have it all here from the very first issue. And while it will still be some time before Frank Miller shows up and introduces Stick and the Ninjas and Elektra, this is still such a solid piece of his origin. The next place I'd recommend to start reading Daredevil is, of course, Frank Miller's Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. This is a classic, I believe, 4-issue miniseries that re-explores and kind of reinvents Daredevil's origin story, and it's near perfect in my opinion. I'll give you a quick look at my copy here. This is my copy of Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. I showcased this on one of my other videos on this channel. I believe it was Comics I'm Thankful For. I love my copy. It's an older copy, but I think the cover is just so striking. Just that beet red with the, silhouette of the Daredevil there. Anyway, as I mentioned, this is kind of a mini-series by Frank Miller and I believe John Romita on pencils. And it dives back into the world of Daredevil and his origin. This one adds all of the stuff with Elektra as a kid and Stick, and introducing some of that kind of ninja backstory that Frank Miller utilized throughout his run. People who are unfamiliar with this work should really consider it if you're looking at Daredevil. It's very much the Batman Year One, but for Daredevil. And it absolutely plays to the strengths of the character. I would consider this kind of the definitive origin story as far as I go. And you absolutely see this as a basis for everything that shows up in the Daredevil Netflix TV show, for those that have seen that. That was heavily influenced by Frank Miller's run and what he did here in Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. In addition to some very sharp, character-driven writing that really grounds you with all of the cast of Daredevil, I really think that this has some of the best pencil work and coloring I've seen from Romita. I don't know what it is about the style here, but there's a lot of really cool line work and kind of a almost cross-hatched and sketchy feel at times. The coloring just really pops, and it feels like it's wedged right in the middle between like old school and kind of modern comics. It has this kind of in-between feel, and it just really works for this character. And I would really put this up there as a timeless comic work. And while there might not be an overwhelming amount of Daredevil in his costume fighting crime as Daredevil throughout this book, I will say that this is probably one of my absolute favorite comic book origin stories of all time. If you've read Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, I'd love to know what you thought in the comments, or let me know if you want to see a full review of this or anything else I mentioned throughout this video. As I've said before, Daredevil is my absolute favorite superhero character, and I'm always happy to do a little more. Okay, moving along to my next stop for where to start reading Daredevil, and this, of course, is Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada's Daredevil, Guardian Devil. Okay, and I'll go ahead and bring out my copy right now. I just have a standard size trade paperback. Really love the cover on my copy. A lot of the books I'm showing here have been reproduced in, other hardcovers, trade paperbacks. You can almost always find them digitally. I'm sure a good handful of them are on the Marvel Unlimited service as well, in case you're looking for other ways to check these out. But going back to Kevin Smith's Guardian Devil, why did I include this on this list? Well, I'm happy to tell you. Guardian Devil began Daredevil back at a #1 issue. I think this is volume 2 of the series. And it's during Marvel's Marvel Knights kind of imprint or setup, where they relaunched a lot of these characters with a new issue #1. A lot of the Marvel Knights stuff is a little bit more adult-centric, a little bit grittier, a little bit more grungy, real, things like that. And from my understanding, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air for the Daredevil universe. While there are other great places to start Daredevil, starting with a #1 issue is always a good place to look. They fill you in on what you need to know about the character while also taking it in a brand new direction, and the story in here is incredible. We have the return of Karen Page, a potentially chosen one kind of baby, and most importantly, we have Matt Murdock at a real crossroads in his life when he's really trying to figure out who he is now as a hero and a person, and what matters the most. Now, this storyline does have some pretty intensive spoilers that I don't want to really ruin for you guys if I can avoid it, so let me see if I can skip around. Anyway, this was not only a great story in its own right that successfully relaunched this character with a #1 issue, but it also paved the way for some incredible storytelling that followed in this volume 2 of Daredevil. Guardian Devil definitely gets my recommendation and is a great place to start reading Daredevil. Okay, the next place you should start reading Daredevil is the Bendis Maleev Daredevil run. This happens to be my personal favorite run of Daredevil to date. And what makes it such a great place to start? I can't wait to tell you. And to showcase the Bendis Maleev run for today, I'm going to go ahead and show you my Volume 1 of the Daredevil by Bendis Maleev Ultimate Collections. These are a collection of standard size, big trade paperbacks. You have the entire run split across 3 of these Ultimate Collections, all of which I have. I know they also are collected in an omnibus or 2, and you can find smaller trade paperbacks as well as digital, of course. And there are single issues. This collection starts with a story arc written by Bendis before Maleev gets there. This story has kind of a painted look. I still really like this style as well, but it's not until you get into the meat of the collection that Alex Maleev takes over for penciler, and that's when this collection really pops for me. So this run takes place in the kind of Volume 2 era of Daredevil. So after Guardian Devil, there's like another story arc in there somewhere, and then pretty shortly after that, Bendis takes over. And Bendis continues the kind of gritty, street crime level Daredevil stories that I think are his perfect tone. And if possible, it gets even grittier, and the art really reflects that. Maleev has a very intensely, almost sketchy, dark kind of look to his work that really makes this shine. Reading this run of Daredevil almost felt like you're in kind of a grimy noir series that happens to have a superhero in it. We get a lot of great organized crime bits in this. We get a lot of great Daredevil work, character work specifically with the characters of Matt Murdock and Daredevil and what it means and who he is. And it just is a great exploration of the character that I think hasn't been done quite this well since Frank Miller did his run in the 80s. Jumping in with the Bendis run as well, as long as you know the basic origin, you really don't need to know that much more about the character to really just dive in. And that's why I included the Bendis Maleev run on this list. I will say, if you decide to pick this up, pick up the whole run, because it's that good. This is what made Daredevil for me my all-time favorite character. Next on my list is, of course, Daredevil by Mark Waid. Like Guardian Devil before it, Daredevil by Mark Waid kicks off an entire new volume of the Daredevil series with a brand new issue number 1. And like Guardian Devil, it doesn't mean that all the stuff before Volume 3 never occurred. It just means it gets a new numbering and has a fresh change of pace. And I don't know if there's ever been a bigger shift than when Waid started Daredevil. Without going into too many details, Volume 2 of the Daredevil run ended with Daredevil getting possessed by some kind of demon and getting really dark during the Daredevil Shadowlands event, which is not one of my favorite periods in Daredevil's history. Out of that, though, sprung this, Daredevil by Mark Waid. And unlike so many incarnations of Daredevil before him, Mark Waid took the character in a much more upbeat, bright, and light-hearted direction, throwing back to almost Silver Age values and aesthetic. This run initially really threw me off because I was used to the grim, dark Daredevil that to this day is still my favorite flavor of Daredevil, but it took a while for what Mark Waid did to really sink in for me. And when I finally got it, when it finally clicked, when I finally went through the entire run, Waid became easily one of my favorite runs on the character. His Daredevil is not ignorant, naive, airheaded. He's just trying to remain positive as a last grasp on his sanity. And as the run continues, you see the mask slip a little bit, and you see good old Matt in there, still agonizing, trying to figure everything out. And it just works. The art and coloring are top-notch, and this is a high recommend and great place to start reading Daredevil. My last recommendation for where to start reading Daredevil, before a few honorable mentions, is of course Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. To showcase that run, I have my first volume of this oversized hardcover edition of the first, 10 issues of Zdarsky's run. This is the current ongoing series for Daredevil at the time of this recording. Now, I haven't kept current on this run as I'm waiting for these collections to keep rolling out, but I've read enough to definitely get the vibe that this is a great starting point for new readers. It too starts with an issue 1. I believe this is volume 6 of Daredevil. Please, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe that this is issue 1 of volume 6 for this character. And we're back to kind of a gritty, darker spin on Daredevil. So far, this writer has taken him in such new directions, and I love it. The artist attached to this run as well is absolutely breathtaking. I think for my money, why I liked Zdarsky's run compared to maybe the run before that, the Charles Soule run, which I also really enjoy, is that I think it was easier to just lock in and be engaged with this run. I think it was a little bit more user-friendly. I think the art style was also a little bit more gripping. The Charles Soule run was great, but it's a bit more stylized versus I think that the Zdarsky stuff will appeal to maybe broader audiences right off the bat. Another thing too, this run did a great job of kind of catching you up. It kind of gives you the idea of where Matt just was and what you need to know going forward. And then honestly, Zdarsky really plays with the status quo of Daredevil, but you don't need a ton of background knowledge to engage and jump into the series. And since it is still ongoing, what a great time to jump into this character. This run's getting a lot of accolades and buzz, and there's a reason for it. And honestly, it's a great place to start with the character. Now for the first of my 2 honorable mentions, the first being the Charles Soule Daredevil run. Here I have the first trade paperback collection from this run. This is a great run too. It also starts with an issue 1. And they actually just released an omnibus for this run, which is always great to see. This run takes place after the Waid run and before Zdarsky, and it's a return to kind of the darker Matt Murdock. And especially after Waid, this was a big tonal shift again. He's back in a black costume, and he's edgy, he's dark, he has stylized art, and he even gets a sidekick for this. That is one of the best parts of this run in my opinion, the character Blind Spot. I decided to include this run as a runner-up because I don't think it's a great place if you're brand new to the character, but it's still a good run and it's still very current and modern, so it's a great place for those that don't love older comics but want to still dive in a little earlier. I think the general opinion of this run is pretty high, myself included, but it is a little heartbreaking to see how they kind of unravel a lot of the stuff Mark Waid did during his run, but still a decent place to start. And my last runner-up is the Daredevil Frank Miller run from the 80s. I can't do a best of Daredevil list without this run. To showcase it today, I have my trade paperback. His whole run is broken off across 3 of these. This is one of the most iconic Daredevil runs of all time, and even though it's from mostly the 80s, it really holds up. And the only real reason I left it off the list is because I think his work in The Man Without Fear was a better place to start reading the character. But this is still certainly a great place to dive in. It's still early-ish Daredevil, but it's when Daredevil got a bit grittier and kind of has the voice that he kind of has in more modern incarnations of him. We get the ninjas, we get the hand, we get Stick, we get Elektra, we get so many of the things that are now iconic Daredevil from this run. The Miller run was a breath of fresh air and a revolution for the character of Daredevil. And to all of our benefit, he's never been the same since. If you're looking to start with the character, there's a lot worse you could do than the Frank Miller run. And that's going to do it today for my character showcase on Daredevil and where to start reading. If you'd like reviews on any of the books I talked about today, let me know in the comments. And also, let me know what you thought about this video format and the video itself. I'd love feedback, and I always love hearing from all of you. And that's going to do it today for the Comic Book Report. Please go ahead and give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.